disabilities may seem kind of abstract until it suddenly comes home. My son had a beautiful daughter who did not speak, and became quite concerned. It turned out that she was autistic, and the probability of her speaking more than 20 words was very, very slim. It's very devastating. I'm really pleased that people are working at solving this problem. By the way, with a lot of education and training, we can't keep her quiet. She's a chatterbox now, so in our case it worked out really good. But nonetheless, it was very devastating at the time. It took a lot of work. I'm very pleased that there are people in the world trying to solve this problem. Maybe it's not a problem for everybody in the world, but for a small population, it really makes a difference. We have one of those speakers here today. Nia Hanscom has an autistic child and has developed a very interesting application to solve one particular problem that often occurs with autism, and that is not being able to speak. I congratulate her for taking the initiative to share this with the world.
Thank you very much. I'm Nia Hanscom. It's an honor to be invited to present my work at AVIOS this year, especially following the last esteemed presenter, Sarah Besson from Google. Howard, do you want to play your iPad? Yes? Okay, ask me nicely.
Can I have it?
Yes, you can have iPad. Good job. San and Sam is an educational game app I'm producing for the iPad that uses speech recognition software. I patented the idea to use speech input to activate animations in a simple game to label colors. My intent is to provide motivation to children with autism and speech impairments to use their voices for fun. Autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, is a group of developmental disabilities that cause significant social, communication, and behavioral challenges. Currently, 1 of every 68 children in the U.S. has been diagnosed with ASD. 75% of those are speech delayed, with 25% labeled nonverbal. Worldwide, there are approximately 1.9 billion children, so that means that there are approximately 32 million children with autism and speech impairments. A study conducted last year at Penn State College of Medicine determined that 2/3 of all children diagnosed with ASD also have apraxia, and that there is a severe lack of screening for these children. This is a real tragedy. Apraxia is a motor speech disorder. Children with apraxia have problems saying sounds, syllables, and words. This is not because of muscle weakness or paralysis. The brain has problems planning to move the body parts such as lips, jaw, tongue needed for speech. Apraxia being prevalent among nonverbal children with ASD is treatable. The American Speech and Hearing Association recommends treatment of a minimum of 3 hours of speech therapy per week. Severe speech impairments require intensive treatment with frequent practice at school and at home. However, most kids don't receive a diagnosis of apraxia. That cat is kept in the bag by some districts who have limited resources to deliver adequate therapies for their students. In San Francisco, the most amount of speech therapy a child can receive is 20 minutes per week, and often if the parent can't hire a lawyer to demand more, it is not individualized but delivered in group sessions. Because school budgets exclude intensive speech therapy, educators and therapists recommend teaching our kids to communicate using alternative and augmentative communication systems, or AAC, which includes picture exchange communication systems, or PECS, sign language, and/or speech-generating devices. Briefly, sign language is self-explanatory. PECS involves handing a picture to a caregiver to get something. AAC, traditional, let me go ahead and play that.
I want a snack. I feel happy. Hello, nice to meet you.
Traditional speech-generating devices were heavy, portable, expensive computers with proprietary software that generates speech when you hit a series of icon buttons. Fortunately, AAC software has been adapted to work on iPads, though the graphics and UI remain quite crude. These solutions have become the conventional economical choice, especially if the parent pays for it. The most effective method to improve a child's speech would be to pair verbal speech with these systems. Unfortunately, due to budget and time constraints of educators, this is rarely done. AAC devices were not originally designed for autism. They were developed for people with cerebral palsy and other forms of paralysis. There's nothing intrinsic about speech-generating AAC devices to motivate speech in those who have it, but rather they help to obtain desired items or events after the correct icon button is pushed. There is no speech input elicited from the user of these devices or iPad apps to practice speech and articulation or to entice an utterance. The effectiveness of AAC to improve speech in children with ASD and severe speech delays relies on additional therapies to achieve the best outcome. I never accepted the heartbreaking message given to me that my son would not be able to speak. So I kept working with him and pushed his educators to teach him to verbalize. I met a lot of resistance and was kicked out of a couple schools because I advocated too hard for him. As it turns out, in 2013, researchers from the Kennedy Krieger Institute Center for Autism and Related Disorders and Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine conducted a study involving 535 children ages 8 to 17 with autism and severe speech delays, and found that nearly half became fluent speakers. Amazing. My son loves his iPad, as do most children, but children with autism in particular. I was astounded that with his lack of interest for most activities, how motivated he was by it. There's something about the reliable and consistent feedback from a computer that is so appealing to him. I thought if there was a speech-activated app that would require him to use his voice, he might be motivated to speak for fun and independently, but I could not find one. SR has been used for several years to assist the learning disabled to learn to read and write. This is accomplished using speech-to-text or text-to-speech software. But to date, there is no technology principally intended to motivate speech. Saying It Sam is addressing an area of need that is missing from speech-generating devices and other AAC technologies. The iPad has proven to be highly motivating to children with ASD and can supplement the existing tool sets in both an assistive and recreational way. When they touch a button or image on the screen, it reacts in a clear, consistent, and predictable manner, unlike the way people deliver information with varying intonation, speed, and volume. This technological application of Saying It Sam will provide a therapeutic and recreational tool to motivate and elicit speech from this population of children with autism and speech impairments, and will show the potential of utilizing speech recognition in augmentative and alternative communication devices and software. These apps will appeal to early language learners from age 2 to 5 as well, and can be translated to other languages. I have implemented SR in a novel way to produce animations from speech, which I coined and patented as speech to action, to engage the users with highly motivating mobile technology. The intent is to help shape the user's speech rather than to have the SR natural language processing reinforce the speaker's unintelligible utterances. The key objective of Saying It Sam is to sustain the attention and interest of nonverbal and emerging verbal players and to motivate them toward improved articulation. The goal for the user is to label or make close approximation of the color of a figure on a screen, which will react with an animation and sound effect. Saying It Sam will provide prompts, praise, and reinforcement to engage users to verbally identify colors of figures on each screen. Here is a prototype I produced a year ago. redesigned by Appster Inc. to include a character, Sam, improve the UI, and add multiplayer data tracking. Future versions will have settings of 3 skill levels for pre-verbal, emerging verbal, and more fluent speakers. 3 different levels of criteria will be used to advance to new sets of animating objects and screens. Users will be helped to shape their utterances as the skill level advances, and a caregiver can adjust level settings requiring closer approximations. Since Sam is relying on single-word utterances, it is possible to control what responses will be recognized by modifying the code with specific phonetic spellings. Sam is coded with Dragon Mobile SDK by Nuance. The SR code for Sam is modified to accept approximations of a limited vocabulary for labels of colors, numbers, and words, with several exceptions per utterance. The exceptions will be based on common speech patterns and errors of early language learners or phonological processing. For example, red is recognized if it is pronounced wed, wet, or wedda, for example. Sam will initially be published as a mobile device app on the iOS platform for iPads. These are the most popular devices being used by children with autism for recreation and increasingly for AAC use. iPads are much less expensive than traditional AAC speech-generating devices, less stigmatizing, lighter weight, and unlike AAC devices, use a universal system software. iOS mobile devices are more universally accepted and understood and ideal for communication needs. Challenges to the approach of Sam will be the necessity to teach the user to play the game with voice rather than touch. It will require close supervision and instruction, which will be provided at the time the app is loaded from the App Store. Ambient noise and speaker volume may also be issues with the game's performance. A strong internet connection will be required for optimum performance of the app. A caregiver or educator will be required to load Sam from the App Store, whereupon they will complete a brief survey about the player's name, age, severity of diagnosis, if any. A privacy policy will state that recorded data will be non-identifiable and not be released or sold to any company or individual. Only aggregate results of the app's data will be published. Sam has 3 patented themes: colors, numbers, and words. I will research the effectiveness of the colors addition to determine its effectiveness before beginning further development. Data that is collected from the user on the back end will be analyzed with game analytics to track player behavior and measure engagement and response of Sam's users. The data will be able to measure amount of time spent playing the game, number of correct responses, and what levels have been reached. Data will be taken from the player's initial gameplay and compared to the results at the end of the test period of a month. Because I did not accept the message that my son would never learn to speak, I never gave up hope and pushed his educators to work with him. He now has several phrases and a growing vocabulary that has opened up his world. He can engage with others in a spontaneous way. He can say he's hungry, wants water, wants a hug, wants to go home, needs to go to the bathroom, all important information. With 32 million children worldwide having autism and speech delays, there is a huge need and market potential for technological innovation for this population that is woefully underserved. Thank you very much.
We have some time for questions.
Questions?
In the presentation, it is mentioned that sign language could be an alternative for children with autism to communicate.
Yes.
Is there any proof from academia that sign language could be a good choice for children with autism, or it is just a temporary solution for a short period?
It's a means to communicate, it's just not speech. That's my mission, is to help kids learn to speak and get the message out there. It's been an erroneous message that children, if they can't speak by 4 or 5, won't be able to, because they can, most of them, given the proper treatment.
A personal observation was it's just one story. My granddaughter's parents and we learned some sign language when she was struggling between 3 and 4 years old before she was able to speak. And she was actually able to pick up some sign language and begin to communicate. You could see how excited she was when she was able to give us a sign that she wanted to drink the water or something. It really made a difference to her. Now, I cannot validate that that led to the verbal communication that came afterwards. but in my mind, it was certainly a big help.
Oh, yeah, it
That's
helps with
only-
the communication intent.
That's only one example. We need to have more research.
Yes, we need more research. Deborah?
I had a question about the acceptable approximations of the different phonemes in the vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
Did you, I guess I was wondering, one thing was where did those come from? And then the other thing was, as someone's speech improves, you think that maybe you want to tighten up on the what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and try to motivate them to be more and more accurate.
Yes, definitely. The phonological processing is data that's existed for, I don't know, I guess decades, done by speech pathologists, and it's taken from common speech errors that children make, either when they're as early language learners or if they have speech impairments. They're very common patterns which kids with autism have as well. Maybe not all kids with autism, but and also, yes, future iterations will have 3 different skill levels in order to help shape the articulations to something more accurate.
I had the same question, so then my follow-up question will be getting even deeper into it. But is there any intention of having data-driven, like user rules for recognizing words, in addition to the historical ones that you just explained?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
So now I don't have yet, and so now with this excellent app, and as you're saying, there are not many alternatives on the market, so hopefully many kids will be using it. So you'll have a lot of data about pronunciation differences that wasn't available decades ago when the speech pathologists made their own. Will you use that in order to improve the rules or maybe fine-tune that? That's one question. And then the second also, for making it stricter, will it be made only by restricting recognition or also maybe finding, I don't know, words that are so similar in their pronunciation that the kid will be forced to pronounce more exactly, because otherwise it will be ambiguous?
Well, this is, we're early in development, and I think with beta testing and the research that we do, we'll have a better idea of what we can do. And what was the first part?
Data-driven.
Yes, oh yeah. That is definitely a possibility in recording the utterances, to maybe expand the approximation list. But we don't really want it to recognize anything that's too unintelligible, because then that would be reinforcing, inaccurate responses or articulation.
Having looked at an earlier draft of this presentation, as I recall, you captured the utterances of the child, and then conceivably you could use that to improve the system afterwards. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely a possibility. It's not a scope of my current developers right now, but I'm looking for funding. So if I can get funding, then that's definitely something I could do later.
I'd like to ask you, can you paint a picture of what else this kind of system could become to help kids improve their speech?
Well, I think
Not that this system is going to become it, but give me a feeling for what's the potential of this kind of system.
Well, I would hope that it could become more involved and more complex, so that the player is making full sentences. And that might be beyond my capability. I'm hoping that somebody will be interested in taking this farther in the future.
Good. Other questions? Sarah?
I think there has been software in the second language acquisition community. I don't know if you've looked at any of that. Where there might be some synergies that would be helpful, in terms of also, visual rewards if you actually, get the ball in the basket. You say something and the ball goes into the basket, and, is your intonation acceptable? So I think Syracuse language had something, if people are familiar with that. I'm not up to date with the latest, but anyway, some of that just might be synergistic with what you're doing.
No, that sounds good. I'll look into that. And for the my target audience, if they on the App Store, it will be marketed for your ages 5 and under. So they're pretty much happy with the sound effects and a pop, and so it can at this point, I think it'll be sufficient reward. But I'm not sure. I mean, kids are so much more technologically savvy now than they used to be.
One more question there in the back.
Yeah, we have about 100,000 school installations for assisted use, helping children with accommodative testing. But there isn't really a product for the age group that you're working in, especially at the early developmental. And so I suspect that there might be some real scalability where the schools are concerned as opposed to only a child by child. It might help you with your funding and scalability.
Oh, great. Let's talk.
What company are you with? You said we had several products. What company are you with?
Gotcha. We do TTS for accommodative testing, in a variety of different schools.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you all for coming. Let's give both of our speakers a big hand.